investigation, certainly after the PCA came out, one question that a lot of people were wondering is this the first time that the suspect, and not just the suspect who's currently in jail, but whoever the suspect is, any suspect in a crime like this, could it be possible that this is their first crime? And is it possible that they were a serial killer in the making? Now, I've talked in other videos about the current suspect's history of addiction and how I feel that contributed to a crime like this, to the brutality, to the rage, and to the adrenaline. And I want to play a clip for you from a TikTok creator named Lytle. He's a professor, psychologist, and he's the author of the book, The Psychology of Murder. And he's going to give you some insights into how addiction might play a role in committing a crime like this.
But why that drug addiction is relevant is another serial killer he likely studied was Tommy Lynn Sells, known as kind of a transient, vagrant serial killer who was very impulsive in his killings and traveled a lot and quickly. So that's what made him difficult to catch, because he was usually out of the area. Why Tommy Lynn Sells is significant is because he reported that for him, the act of killing gave him the same kind of rush as drugs had given him. Now, Kohberger, with his drug history, could that have created curiosity in him? Would he have the same kind of rush? Also, turning into a bully in high school probably started a progression of aggressive fantasies, possibly revenge fantasies.
Now, I don't happen to believe that somebody just starts at a quadruple homicide. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say, well, what about BTK? I don't think that was his first crime. I don't think that was his first crime either. That doesn't mean that I think he committed other murders. I just think that he was he had other behavior where he was producing that same adrenaline and getting that same rush that one would get planning and committing a crime like this. Now, I may have said this before, maybe not, but I don't think he left his house that night with the intention of committing a crime or murdering 4 people. I think he had everything ready in his car. I think it was something that he wanted to do and had been planning to do. And I just think something overtook him that night. You know, Casey mentions in his video, he talks about the impulsivity that comes along with addiction and addictive personalities and when you're experiencing that rush. And could that be why he drove his own car? Could that be why he turned on his phone? Could that be why, or could that have contributed to why he maybe dropped the sheath? Or like why he attacked Xana and Ethan? Again, I will say, I don't happen to think Xana saw him. I think he went straight to that room because I think he had a taste for it. So could that impulsivity that comes with craving, with that rush, could that have contributed to the mistakes that were made with this crime? I think in a case like this, specifically with the current suspect, because they had a history of addiction, I think his cravings were probably a lot more intense, a lot stronger than somebody who didn't have a history of addiction. And so I think he escalated fairly quickly. But I do think he escalated. Most thrill killers, most killers where it's premeditated, they just don't start there. They usually start at like being a peeping Tom or stalking or even just cyber stalking. And they get a sense of power from that. There's something it's twisted. It's something very powerful to feel as though you're watching somebody who doesn't know that they're being watched. There's a power in that, which I think that need for power and control played a role in this crime and the person who committed it had this really intense craving for power and control, specifically over women. So I could see the suspect maybe starting with stalking and stalking these women, but I don't happen to think that the stalking went on for long, if it did happen. I think in someone who maybe doesn't have a history of addiction, it might have been a number of weeks. I don't think that was the case with somebody with a history of addiction. I think the span of the stalking was probably much shorter, and I think he moved up very quickly. Now, do I think he went in there to kill 4 people? I don't know. I think he went in there to do something. Now, was his plan to just sexually assault one of the women? Possibly, and then things just went wrong? That's very possible. And that's why I say to go, from, say, being a peeping Tom to a quadruple homicide, that's a really big jump. And I just don't know that he moved that quickly, which is why I'm thinking that he went in there with the intention of doing one thing, and then once he got a taste of it, once that adrenaline started to surge, once he started to get that rush, he just wanted more. And that's very typical for addicts, right? Like it's not enough, and they keep using and using, and then they eventually build up a tolerance for it. So I could see him being in that house with the intention of just committing one crime, and then the rush was just so great that he was like, I just need more of this. I just need more of this. I also think that craving for power and control, and that craving for that rush played a role in the house that he chose. I've said this, and many people have said this. How many cars were out front of that house, parked out in front? And he saw that because he drove around that house multiple times. He knew that there was the potential for multiple people to be in that house. And even if he only had the intention of attacking one of them, I think there was a certain appeal to him that there were going to be multiple people in that house. The risk factor was that much higher. And so that's why that house appealed to him more than, say, one of the smaller houses in the area. More people, more cars, more chance to get caught. I think that was part of the thrill for him, was to commit this crime, and with the very high likelihood he could get caught. I think he was chasing a certain rush, and everything just kind of went sideways. But unfortunately, because of all that adrenaline, and just because of the weapon that he had, and because they had been sleeping and maybe partying, they were just far too vulnerable to be able to protect themselves, unfortunately. In a case of somebody with addiction who commits a crime like this, had he not been caught, I absolutely believe he would have killed again. There's no question in my mind that because of his history of addiction, if he had gotten away with this, or at least they hadn't caught him yet, or didn't catch him as quickly, I absolutely believe he would have killed again. Because once he got a taste for that, it's like anything else. When you have that propensity for addiction, once you get a taste, and that's the scary thing really about, about using these substances, is that you don't know if you're going to get addicted. And it only takes one time. It only takes one use to become addicted. And I think in this case, if he committed this crime and he got away with it, something of such magnitude, there's no doubt in my mind that craving would have become so much stronger, and so much more dire that he just needed it. He absolutely would have killed again. I do think he was a serial killer in the making. What I want to know from you, do you think this is the first kill Or do you think this is his first crime? And if not, where do you think he started? Because like I said, I think he started with peeping Tom and stalking. And I think it was a very short window before he escalated into wanting to go into that house. But I want to know what you think. Where do you think he started? Do you think he committed a vicious crime before? And do you think if he hadn't gotten caught, he would have killed again? Leave your thoughts in the comments.